Hard to believe, muzzleloading season is almost here. I have the new Encore Pro Hunter XT muzzleloader in 50 caliber. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you guys through what my gun build is going to be this year while I'm shooting it. I'm going to start with the Leupold VX6 HD Gen 2 scope. Now this is only in 2 to 12 power. Most of my hunts this year are not going to require me to shoot beyond 200 yards. I like the compact nature of the scope. The eye relief is really good. I like the ability to turn it down to 2 or 3 power. I do have a moose hunt coming up in Utah I'm going to use this gun for. So a little bit wider field of view on a big animal is a good thing. But let's get this thing mounted up. I think the ring spacing's in a good spot. Now we're going to level the gun. This is pretty critical because what I intend to do is to use the CDS system, the custom dial system. So I'm going to have Leupold make me a custom turret. This is the Gen 2. So the Gen 2 allows me to toollessly take this turret off, put a new turret on here to the exact ballistic specifications of the load I'm going to walk you guys through that I'm going to shoot this year. So as you're clicking the scope on the CDS system, it's really important to have your gun leveled, your scope leveled, because you don't want it to track left and right on you. All right, gun is leveled, put the scope on. What I typically like to do, if the ring spacing works, is to allow one slot behind the ring and at least one slot in front of the Picatinny rail, so that way if I do have to adjust my eye relief, I can just unbolt the whole system, move it back or move it forward for those fine-tuned adjustments for eye relief, but I don't think I'm going to need to on this. I've mounted the scope enough on these guns. A pretty good idea on what works. There's a lot of thought and theory behind how you mount the rings in the Picatinny rail. The scope manufacturers like you to push both the rings to the front of the rail, so the recoil is always pushed up against the rail. My personal preference is the front ring goes forward on the Picatinny rail, the back ring goes on the back. That way during recoil my scope doesn't move, but also if I'm on a four-wheeler in a truck, on a float plane or something with this gun and I get a lot of recoil, or excuse me, a lot of vibration on the scope, it's also pushing against the backside, so it's pushing against both sides of the Picatinny rail. Just gives me a little bit more assurance that I'm not going to have any ring slippage inside the pick rail. So whenever you set your eye relief, make sure you put it on the highest power that you have on your scope. So in this case it's 12 power. Now here's where the leveling comes in. So we've leveled the gun. So we go back to this level up front. Make sure the level on the scope is spot on, and it is. And then you just slowly follow a set. I go from one corner to the next, to the side, over to the next corner. And I'll double check. Corner, corner, side. And then just slowly start following that pattern as I tighten it. It's really important to torque these down to the right ring specifications as well. It's the right designation. I do not want to crimp my tube, so make sure you always follow the recommendation of the ring manufacturer. They're all different. Eye relief is good. Scope is square. It's really not difficult. If you have the right tools, anything is easy with a little bit of know-how. Of course, with YouTube University nowadays and all the great videos on manufacturers' websites, you can learn these basic skills and do it yourself to make sure you have the assurance that your setup is perfect and customized to you. I feel 100% good about this setup. So now I'm going to remove the levels. We're going to get to shooting. So the round that I'm going to be using this year is one that I've used for decades now. It's a 250 grain shockwave bullet. As you can see here, it's got a polymer tip. It's got a core inside of it. The tip goes down. It gives you fast controlled expansion, so that way if you're shooting longer ranges and the bullet is slowing down, you still get optimal performance, but it still gives you the ability to hold together because the core is locked to the jacket, and it gives you great aerodynamics. You put this in the sabot like this. The reason I like running a sabot bullet in this setup is I'm going to be using blackhorn powder. I'm going to start with 120 grains, which is the max load. But this sabot bullet grips the barrel better than a bore-sized bullet. And on Blackhorn, it wants to be compressed. You want to hold that powder in place as long as you can during the ignition process, so that way you get the best, most consistent combustion. And I find that the Sabo gives me that on Blackhorn powder. So to start off, we're going to just run a patch down the barrel, make it sure it's free from any moisture, lubricants, anything like that. And then we're going to fire our first shot. So this barrel is brand new off the production line, has never been shot. Literally just built this today. Dried and cleaned. Next thing is you want to fire a primer off. That way if there's any of those lubricants during the manufacturing process, your storage process, you can blow them out of your breech plug. Now this breech plug is the new nitride breech plug. It's the same Speed Breech XT design as before. The only difference is it's nitride treated, so that gives you more corrosion resistance. Allows your plug to stay cleaner longer, maintenance free. Pop a primer in here, point this in a safe direction. So now everything is cleared out in the fire channel. Now we can go ahead and load our first round. Tap that in, give it a little skim like that. One thing to remember when you're using a powder measure with a top that swings is pinch the top closed like that, so that way it won't spin out when you put it down the barrel. Take your thumb on the edge like that and just guide it down the barrel. If the powder bridges like that, that's why this U-View powder measure is the best. Give it a little tap, and now you can see all the powder is going down the barrel. Give a little love tap on the bottom, make sure it all settles to the bottom. So QLA, about 3/4 of an inch down, we have an internal crown inside the barrel, and there's actually a 10-degree taper to lead your Sabo or your bullet into the lands and grooves. So you can push this down and it stops an internal crown. Just give it a little push like that. It starts the bullet into the taper in the QLA. Now, you just push it down to the bottom. That's a nice barrel. Now on Blackhorn, it wants to be compressed. So you want to push this down until you feel that powder compress inside the Sabo and inside the well of the breech plug. And that will give you the most consistent ignition. If you don't have a chronograph, you're really into muzzle loading, hand loading, long range, shooting for rifles or even archery, I recommend you spend the money. It's worth every bit. So this is a 250 grain bullet, as you can see right here. So we'll make the adjustments to our exact bullet size. There we go. And you don't have to set it in front of the muzzle. You can set it right there next to it. That's all you need to do. Old school sighting at a gun. I know you can bore sight it. You can look down the bore, adjust your scope, do all of that stuff. To me, just walk up to 20, 25 yards, shoot a shot, make the big adjustments, and then work your way back to 100. So that's what we're going to do now. Take our first shot here at about 25 yards. You see we hit just at the bottom of the paper there. Left and right's not bad, but it looks like at this distance I'm 6 inches low. So I'm going to have to quadruple my clicks to get back to 100 to make sure I adjust here. It's 25, so 4 clicks at 25 is equivalent to 2 clicks at 50, equivalent to 1 click at 100. All right, with Blackhorn powder, you do not need to swab between shots, so we can go right into reloading our next shot. I just made a big adjustment here. Hopefully I'll be on paper again at 50, then I'll make my last adjustments at 100. That's pretty darn good. Looks like I'm an inch high at 50 right now. I'm gonna move right back to 100, and I'm close enough, I'm gonna be on paper, and it could drop right into the bullseye. Gun's getting warmed up a little bit. I've killed so many animals with these shock waves. I have no doubt how well they can shoot, how well they perform on game. They don't load too difficult. All right, let's talk about primers for a second. So on Blackhorn powder, you need to use standard 209 primers. Winchester, Federal 209As are excellent. CCI is another good choice. Do not use your muzzle loading primers. They don't have the heat or the fire volume that a standard primer has. The Winchesters, I find, have the most consistent overall length and a little bit longer, so they seal really well in the breech plug. All right, so I am high and left, not by much, so I need to go down. Should be good. Load it up again. Muzzle loading is so much about consistency. The powder you use, the bullets you use, how much seating pressure, when you clean, how much you clean. So it's something to really pay attention to. That's how you're going to get the most out of your muzzleloader. So you look at my velocity right there, 2,071 feet per second. That's pretty standard for 120 grains. You figure that's the equivalent of a 45-70. So plenty of killing power and good flat trajectory. If you don't think you're going to shoot over 150 yards, stick with 100 grains of powder. It's perfectly fine. You don't need to push it to 120. But for me, I've got a moose hunt. I'm going to be shooting bigger bodied animals. I want to max this gun out. Moved it some, but not enough. Down some more. Once you master the art of muzzleloading, you use the right powder and projectiles and loading sequence, you can get this very consistent. If you look at the chronograph now, it's 2,070 feet per second. It's only a 1 foot per second difference between the last two shots. Now that's not standard. Normally it's a little bit more than that, but it goes to show you the consistency that you can achieve if you use the right components and you know how to load correctly. This should be more in line. There we go. All right, we're a 1/2 inch left, 1 inch low. Super easy to correct. A lot of people shooting bore-sized bullets today. They make some really good bore-sized bullets. TC has some coming out as well. They load easier. They're a little bit heavier. Not as aerodynamic unless you go with a long spire point bullet. But I find on the Blackhorn powder, the standard deviation on these shots is a little bit better with the Sabo bullet. Even there, 287. So that's only 17 feet per second difference in standard deviation. That's unbelievable. That's something you hope to get in a centerfire round. Bingo, right there. Got the top half of the red dot. So that was it. A handful of shots. It took us 3 shots to get on target in 100 yards. It took me another 3 shots to get it perfectly zeroed. Now that I have it zeroed where I want to, I can move this lever up. I can pick this turret up. Now I am zeroed. Mark that down. I'm going to do the same with my windage. Lock that into place. Okay, so now my turrets are zeroed. So I'm going to shoot this gun probably for another couple hundred rounds, season the barrel, shoot in different weather conditions, make sure that I'm really comfortable with it, and then I'm going to stretch it out to 200 yards and then maybe to 300 yards. And by continuing to watch what my velocities are here, I would say my standard deviation is excellent. My average velocity is 270 feet per second. So I'll take my atmospheric conditions, I'll take my velocity, I'll take my bullet weight, I'm going to send that to Loophole. Then they're going to give me a custom turret. So that way, if I'm on my moose hunt, have to take a long shot at a whitetail, I'm dialed in. But that is my rig for this year. The only thing I need to do now is to clean it. And I'm going to tell you the most important part to clean about a muzzleloader is the breech plug. It's easy to swab and clean the barrel. A lot of people understand that. But this is the magic to making sure Blackhorn ignites cleanly. Is making sure that you clean the flash hole here with either a pipe cleaner, a small brush, or even an 1/8 inch drill bit. You can spin that in your hands. But if you keep this clean and you clean and season your barrel, you'll get the ultimate in performance out of your muzzleloader.